She didn't just break my heart, she took the shattered pieces, reshaped them into a weapon, and broadcasted my public execution to thousands. My own life, meticulously twisted, became her best-selling narrative, leaving me a villain in a story I couldn't rewrite. The sterile hum of the office fluorescent lights usually offered a dull comfort, a backdrop to my daily grind. But that afternoon, with my headphones clamped tight, it felt like a spotlight, harsh and unforgiving. A digital voice, once a source of warmth and laughter, seeped into my skull, twisting reality into a nightmare. It started innocently enough. My friend Liam had mentioned his ex-girlfriend Olivia was doing a podcast. The Almost Fiancé, it was called. The cover art, a lone silhouette staring out a window, promised intimacy. The description? Raw, honest stories about love, control, and finding your voice after emotional abuse. I clicked play, a vague sense of unease, a flicker of something familiar, tickling at the back of my mind. 30 seconds in, Olivia's voice, a little softer than I remembered, filled my ears. I met him at a gallery opening, she began. He was a software developer who acted like art was beneath him, but he kept circling back to my painting. I thought it was charming. I didn't realize he was studying me. My blood ran cold. Software developer? I was a data analyst. But the gallery, the painting. It was the abstract piece with the layered blues, the one I genuinely complimented, the one that reminded me of deep water. I stood frozen in the middle of the sidewalk, the city's rush dissolving around me. He had this way of asking questions that felt like interest, but was really inventory, Olivia continued. What time do you usually wake up? Do you like being alone? How close are you with your family? I answered everything because I thought we were connecting. I didn't see the pattern until later. My hands, suddenly clammy, went numb. Those were real questions. Questions I'd asked on our second date. She'd actually told me then how much she appreciated my curiosity, how refreshing it was that I didn't just talk about myself. Now? Now it was reconnaissance. My stomach churned. I skipped ahead, desperate. Episode 3, The Jokes That Weren't Funny. Olivia's voice again, dripping with victimhood. He had this running bit about my coffee order. I'd get an oat milk latte with an extra shot, and he'd say, high maintenance as always, every single time. It seemed playful at first. Then I realized he said it in front of other people, in front of my friends. He was training everyone around me to see me as difficult. Fury simmered, hot and immediate. High maintenance? I'd made that joke maybe 4 times total. And she'd laughed. Every single time, she'd laughed. She'd even turned it into her own bit, proudly ordering the high-maintenance special when we went to new cafes. This wasn't just a distortion, it was an outright betrayal. I scrolled through the episode list, a morbid fascination taking hold. 12 episodes, all posted in the last month. Titles like When Sorry Becomes a Weapon, and The Night I Knew I Had to Leave. My thumb hovered over the comments section. Hundreds of them. This guy sounds like a nightmare. Thank you for sharing your story. My ex did the exact same thing with the jokes. It's never just jokes. The inventory questions gave me chills. That's textbook manipulation. I felt a cold dread settle deep in my bones. Episode 7. I clicked. She was describing the fight we'd had about her brother's wedding. In her version, I'd thrown a tantrum because I wasn't getting enough attention, demanding we leave early, and she'd spent the rest of the night apologizing to her relatives for my behavior. My blood boiled. What she conveniently left out was that I'd driven 3 hours each way to that wedding. That I'd waited until after the ceremony and dinner to say anything. That I'd been battling a migraine so severe my vision blurred. And her brother, her own brother, had pulled me aside later, telling me he got migraines too, and understood completely, practically ushering me out the door. The sheer audacity. I endured 3 more episodes, each a fresh stab. Each one took a real moment from our relationship and meticulously sanded off every single edge that might make her look anything less than a saint. The time she'd screamed at me for 20 minutes because I'd forgotten to pick up her prescription? That became me withholding medical care to prove a point. The entire weekend I'd spent helping her move into a new studio apartment. Suddenly evidence that I was inserting myself into every part of her life. I felt like I was losing my mind. Was this really our story? My phone buzzed. It was Olivia. An Instagram story. Over a photo of her recording setup, bold text, "Some people can't handle when someone's telling their truth. If my art makes you uncomfortable, that says more about you than it does about me. I won't be silenced." I hadn't said a word. Not a comment, not a message, not a whisper. And she was already framing my very existence as an attack. Sleep was impossible. I kept refreshing the podcast page, watching the download numbers climb like a fever. By morning, The Almost Fiancé had 42 new 5-star reviews. The first message arrived from Ethan, a guy I'd met through Olivia's art collective. "Hey man, just listen to Olivia's podcast. That's heavy. You doing okay?" I stared at the text for 5 agonizing minutes before typing back. The stories are real, but the context is completely wrong. She's editing out everything she did. 3 dots appeared, vanished, reappeared. Yeah, I figured there were 2 sides. Just wanted to check in. A small relief, but barely a flicker against the darkness. Then came Sophia, who'd been at the wedding Olivia described in episode 7. "I'm listening to this podcast and I'm really confused. You had a migraine that night. I remember." I called her immediately. "Thank you," I choked out. "I thought I was losing my mind." "Noah, I was sitting right there when you asked to leave," Sophia insisted, her voice full of genuine confusion. "You were pale and squinting at the lights. Her brother told you to go home and rest. None of this makes sense. Can I ask you something?" I asked, "If it came up, would you be willing to say that? Just confirm the actual timeline." She hesitated. A long, painful pause. "Confirm it to who?" "I don't know yet. I'm just trying to figure out what's true and what's not." "Look, I believe you," she said, her voice softer now. "But she's got thousands of people listening to her side. And if I get dragged into this publicly, it's going to be my word against hers. I have to work with some of the same galleries she does." My heart sank. "I'm not asking you to fight her," I clarified, my voice weary. "Just asking if you'd tell the truth if someone asked." Another pause. "I'll think about it," she said, then hung up. 3 more messages landed in the next hour. One from a former coworker, asking if everything was okay. One from a guy I played basketball with, saying he'd heard some stuff and wanted to give me a heads up that people were talking. One from my younger cousin, asking if the podcast everyone was sharing was about me. I didn't know how to answer any of them. Every response felt like a trap. Say yes, and I sounded defensive. Say no, and I was lying. Explain what really happened, and I was just the bitter ex who couldn't let go. I called my friend Chloe, who'd known both of us since before we started dating. "I need you to listen to something," I said, sending her the link to episode 7. 20 minutes later, she called back, her voice tight. "This is messed up, Noah." "You were there," I pleaded. "You know what actually happened?" "I know," she said, "but what do you want me to do about it?" "I don't know. Exist. Confirm that I'm not making this up." "She's not saying your name, Noah," Chloe pointed out gently. "Technically, she could be talking about anyone." "Chloe, she described my job, our inside jokes, specific fights. She changed my title from data analyst to software developer and called it art." "I get it," she sighed. "I'm just saying if you go after her publicly, it's going to look like you're trying to silence her. You know that, right?" "I'm not trying to silence anyone." I practically yelled. "I'm trying to stop her from lying about me to thousands of people." "I'm on your side," Chloe assured me. "I'm just telling you how it's going to look." I checked Olivia's podcast page again. A new episode had appeared that morning. Episode 13, when they try to control the narrative. I didn't want to listen. But I made myself. "I knew this would happen," Olivia said, her voice soft, shaky, as if she were holding back tears. "I knew that the second I started telling my story, he'd find a way to make it about him. That's what emotional abusers do. They can't stand it when you take back your voice." She paused, a dramatic intake of breath. "I've gotten messages from people saying he's reaching out to mutual friends, trying to discredit me, trying to poke holes in my timeline. And I just want to say, if you're listening to this and you know who I'm talking about, please be careful. This is exactly the kind of behavior I spent 2 years navigating. The interrogation, the need to be right, the inability to let me exist outside his control." I hadn't interrogated anyone. I'd asked Sophia one question. I'd sent Ethan one text. The comments were already flooding in. "Stay strong. You don't owe him anything. The fact that he's doing this proves everything you said was true. Abusers hate losing their grip on the story. Keep speaking your truth." I opened a reply box under her Instagram post. "This isn't what happened." I typed. Stared at it for 30 seconds. Then deleted it. Closed the app. Chloe was right. Anything I said would be reframed as harassment. Any friend who backed me up would be accused of enabling abuse. Olivia had built a narrative where my silence was guilt, and my defense was proof. Thousands of people were watching her perform vulnerability, while I had no move that didn't make things worse.
My phone buzzed again.
Another message, this time from someone I hadn't talked to in over a year. Hey, I don't know if this is my place, but I just listened to that podcast and it sounds really familiar. Is that about you? I turned my phone off and set it face down on the table. She turned our breakup into content, and I was the villain in a story I couldn't rewrite. 2 days later, I turned my phone back on. 16 new messages waited. Olivia had posted 3 bonus episodes in 48 hours. Episode 14, The Workplace He Built Around Himself. Episode 15, When Your Success Threatens Them. Episode 16, The Project That Proved Everything. I opened episode 14, pressing play. He worked at a tech company downtown, she said, mid-sized, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone. And he'd built this reputation as the dependable one, the guy who stayed late and fixed problems. But what people didn't see was how he used that. He'd volunteer for projects, then make himself indispensable so no one could question him. He controlled every detail, every timeline. If you suggested a different approach, he'd smile and nod and then do exactly what he wanted anyway.
I worked at a
financial analytics firm with 70 employees. I'd led a client retention project last year that our director had specifically praised in a company-wide email. Olivia had been to one company happy hour, 18 months ago, where she'd met maybe 5 people. He had this thing where he described co-workers to me using their flaws, she continued, her voice heavy with revelation. Never their names, just their mistakes.
The guy who missed deadlines.
The woman who talked too much in meetings. He'd frame it like he was venting. But really he was teaching me to see people the way he did, as problems he had to manage. I closed my eyes, a wave of nausea washing over me. I told her about work frustrations, the same way everyone tells their partner about work frustrations. She'd done the same thing about her art collective, the gallery coordinator who always double-booked, the sculptor who showed up late to every install. Episode 15 described the client retention project without naming it. She called it a major initiative that he treated like a personal kingdom, saying I'd frozen out a coworker who tried to contribute ideas. The coworker she was describing was Harper, who had contributed ideas, good ones, which I'd integrated into the final pitch. Harper and I had grabbed coffee 3 times during the project to coordinate our sections. I was halfway through episode 16 when someone knocked on my cubicle wall. I yanked my headphones out. Jake from accounting stood there, holding a coffee.
Hey, sorry to interrupt, he said.
I just wanted to say, if you need anything, let me know. Thanks, I said, I'm fine.
He shifted his weight.
I know it's none of my business, but I was listening to this podcast on my commute, and some of the stuff sounded really familiar. The company size, the project structure. And I just wanted to say, I know how that retention project actually went.
You did good work.
We all saw it.
My stomach dropped.
You listened to the podcast? Just a couple episodes, he admitted. My girlfriend's really into true crime and relationship stuff, and it showed up in her recommendations. She sent it to me because she thought the workplace dynamics sounded like our office.
He paused. It's not true, right?
The stuff about you shutting people out. No, I said, it's not true. I figured, he said. I mean, you and Harper worked together the whole time. I saw you two in the conference room like every other day. Did you tell your girlfriend that? I told her it didn't match what I saw, he said. But she's pretty into the podcast now. Says the host is really brave for speaking out.
He left.
I sat there, staring at my monitor. If Jake had found it, other people at work had found it. People who didn't know me well enough to question it. People who'd now heard a version of my professional behavior that framed collaboration as control and diligence as manipulation. I searched for the name of an attorney Liam's sister had used for a defamation case 2 years ago. Her assistant scheduled me for Thursday afternoon. The lawyer's name was Ms. Choi. Her office was on the 9th floor of a building near the courthouse, 3 monitors on her desk, stacked with legal pads covered in handwritten notes. I listened to the episodes you sent, she said, her voice calm and measured. All 3 of the ones you flagged, plus the 2 bonus episodes from this week.
And she's smart.
She never uses your name.
She changed your job title.
She describes events in ways that are specific enough to feel true, but vague enough to have plausible deniability. Emotional storytelling is protected speech. Unless you can prove she knowingly lied about specific, falsifiable facts, and unless you can prove those lies caused you measurable financial or reputational harm, a defamation case is going to be very hard to win. People at my work are listening to this, I interjected, my voice tight. A co-worker recognized me. My cousin asked if it was about me. Mutual friends are avoiding me.
That's harm.
That's harm, Ms. Choi agreed, but it's not the kind of harm that's easy to quantify in court. Did you lose your job? Did a client drop you? Did your employer formally reprimand you based on the podcast content?
No.
Then what we have is a situation where someone is telling a subjective story about a past relationship, and that story is unpleasant and possibly unfair, but not legally actionable. If you sued her, you'd spend tens of thousands of dollars. The case would take a year or more, and at the end of it, a judge would likely rule that she has a First Amendment right to describe her experiences in her own words. So, I just let her keep lying? I demanded, the unfairness a bitter taste in my mouth. I'm not saying do nothing, Ms. Choi countered. I'm saying a lawsuit probably isn't the right tool. You could send a cease and desist, but that might just give her more material. She could do a whole episode about being legally threatened by an ex who's trying to silence her. I left her office and walked 4 blocks before I realized I'd missed my train.
My phone buzzed.
A text from Isabel, one of Olivia's friends from the art collective who become my friend too, over the 2 years we dated.
Hey, can we talk? I called her.
She picked up on the first ring. I can't do this anymore, Isabel said, her voice strained.
Do what? Be in the middle.
Olivia called me last night crying. She said you're pressuring people to stop listening to her podcast. She said you're trying to destroy her livelihood because you can't handle her success.
My jaw clenched.
I haven't contacted her once.
I nearly shouted.
I asked one friend to confirm a timeline.
That's it.
She says you're going around to mutual friends trying to discredit her. She says she's scared you're going to escalate.
Isabel, you know me.
Do you really think I'd threaten her?
I don't know what to think, she confessed.
I've known you for 2 years, and I've never seen this side of you. But I've also never seen Olivia lie about something this big. One of you is telling the truth, and the other one isn't, and I can't figure out which is which, and I'm exhausted. What did she tell you I did? I asked, my voice dangerously low. She said you contacted her lawyer. She said you're building a case to sue her. She said you told people at her gallery that she's unstable. I talked to a lawyer, yes, my own lawyer. And I haven't been to her gallery in 7 months. I haven't spoken to anyone at her gallery. Isabel, she's making this up. I can't, Isabel said, her voice breaking. I can't be the person who has to decide who's lying. I have to step back from both of you. I'm sorry. She hung up before I could answer. Olivia posted episode 17 that night. When they try to silence you. I want to talk about what's happening right now, she began, her voice quivering, because it's important, and because staying quiet would be letting him win. Since I started this podcast, my ex has been contacting mutual friends. He's been trying to poke holes in my story. He's been gathering people to testify against me like this is a trial and I'm the one on trial.
Her voice cracked. She took a shaky breath.
And the hardest part is that this is exactly what he did when we were together. Anytime I tried to set a boundary or name a problem, he'd find a way to make me the problem. He'd gather evidence.
He'd build a case.
He'd turn my feelings into a debate he could win. The episode was 19 minutes long. 6 of them were spent describing how I'd allegedly threatened her career by enlisting allies in the art world to sabotage her reputation. 4 more were about how frightened she was that I might show up at one of her events. I hadn't been to a single one of her events since we broke up. I hadn't contacted anyone in the art world. The only people I'd talked to were Sophia, Ethan, Chloe, and Isabel. And I'd asked them questions, not to sabotage anyone, but to confirm that I wasn't losing my grip on reality. The comments filled in within an hour. The fact that he's doing exactly what you predicted is chilling.
Please stay safe.
Document everything. This is why victims don't come forward, because abusers weaponize the legal system. Liam texted me at midnight. People are asking me about this. What do you want me to say?
Say whatever you want, I typed back.
I can't control the story anymore.
He didn't reply.
I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. She turned my silence into proof and my questions into threats. Every move I made gave her new material. Every person who believed me became a target. She'd built a machine that ran on my reaction, and the only way to stop feeding it was to let her keep lying. The first family message came from Aunt Carol 3 days after episode 17 went live.
Hi honey.
Someone at my book club shared a podcast, and I think it might be about you. Can you give me a call when you get a chance? I stared at the text for 10 minutes before calling her back. Your mother's friend Brenda sent me a link, Aunt Carol explained. She said she didn't know it was you, but I recognized some of the details. The gallery opening, the coffee jokes. Is this really how she saw your relationship? It's not accurate, I said, the words feeling hollow. She's changing what happened to make me look worse. But some of it is true, right? You did date her for 2 years. You did go to that wedding. The events are real. The way she's describing them isn't. Aunt Carol, I had a migraine that night. Her brother told me to go home. She's making it sound like I threw a fit because I wasn't the center of attention. I'm not saying I don't believe you, she said. I'm just trying to understand why she'd make all this up. Because it's getting her attention. The podcast has thousands of listeners now. She's building a platform on your relationship. On a version of our relationship that makes her look like a survivor and me look like an abuser. She was quiet for a moment. Have you talked to your mother about this? Not yet. You should, she said. Brenda is going to mention it to her eventually, and it would be better coming from you. I called my mom Laura that night. She'd already listened to 2 episodes. I don't understand why you didn't tell me things were this bad, she said, her voice laced with concern. They weren't this bad, Mom. She's exaggerating. She's taking normal relationship stuff and reframing it. Normal relationship stuff like monitoring her schedule and criticizing her in front of her friends? I never monitored her schedule. I asked her what time she'd be home the same way she asked me. And the coffee joke was something we both laughed about until she decided it wasn't funny anymore. So, she's just lying about all of it? She's editing. She's taking real moments and cutting out all the context that makes her look bad. My mom sighed. I don't know what to tell you. If this is all made up, why aren't you doing something about it? Like what? Sue her? I talked to a lawyer. She said unless Olivia uses my actual name or cost me my job, there's no case. And if I push back publicly, I look like the controlling ex she's describing. Then I guess you have to let it go, my mom said. Patricia's book club is listening to it. Aunt Deborah recognized me immediately. How am I supposed to let that go? I don't know, she said. But getting angry about it isn't going to help. She didn't say she believed me. She didn't say she'd tell Brenda the truth. She just suggested I let it go. Like my reputation eroding in real time was something I could choose not to care about. The next day at work, I was in the break room microwaving lunch when I heard Olivia's voice. Ava from marketing was showing her phone to 2 other people I didn't know. I caught the tail end of a sentence about emotional manipulation before Ava noticed me standing there. Oh, she said, turning her phone face down. Hey, I said, my voice flat. The other 2 people grabbed their coffees and left. Ava stayed. I wasn't trying to be weird, she said. Someone sent me the podcast and I didn't realize it was about someone here until Jake mentioned it. It's fine, I said. Is it true, the stuff she's saying? No, most of it's either exaggerated or completely reframed. Ava nodded slowly. That's rough. I mean, she seems pretty credible. The way she talks about it, it sounds really thought through. She's a storyteller, I said, the words heavy with irony. That's literally what she does for a living. She makes art about emotional experiences. This is just another project. But you did date her, right? So, some of it has to be based on real things. Real things that she's describing in ways that make me look as bad as possible. Ava picked up her coffee. I'm not trying to judge. I just think it's complicated, you know? She has a right to tell her story. She has a right to tell the truth, I said, my voice rising slightly. What she's doing is different. Ava left without answering. I ate my lunch standing at the counter because I didn't want to go back to my desk and sit there knowing people 3 cubicles over were listening to my ex-girlfriend describe me as an abuser during their commute. That afternoon, Olivia appeared on another podcast called Unfiltered Truths. The host was Dr. Evelyn Reed, who did long-form interviews with artists and activists. The episode was titled Turning Pain into Power, a conversation with Olivia. I listened to it on my drive home. Your podcast has really resonated with people, Dr. Reed began. What made you decide to go public with your story? I didn't want to at first, Olivia replied, her voice soft, vulnerable. I was scared. I knew he'd retaliate, but I also knew that staying silent was letting him win. And I kept thinking about all the other people who've been in relationships like this and didn't have the words to describe what was happening to them. If my story could give someone else language for their experience, then it was worth the risk. You mentioned retaliation, Dr. Reed prompted. Can you talk about that? He's been contacting mutual friends, Olivia said, her voice firming. Trying to discredit me, trying to build a counter-narrative.
And I get it.
You know, when you've spent years controlling someone, it's terrifying to lose control of how they talk about you. But the thing is, I'm not trying to destroy him. I'm just trying to exist. I'm trying to tell my story and heal from what happened. And the fact that he sees that as a threat says everything. How do you protect yourself in a situation like this?
Dr. Reed asked.
I document everything. I save messages. I keep records. I've had to set really firm boundaries with people who are still in contact with him. And I remind myself every day that my story matters, that I have a right to speak, that his discomfort with my truth doesn't make my truth less valid. The episode had 12,000 downloads in the first 6 hours. The comments called Olivia brave, resilient, and inspiring. 3 people mentioned they'd gone through something similar and were starting their own podcasts about it. I checked my Instagram that night. Isabel had unfollowed me. So had 2 other people from the art collective I'd met through Olivia. I scrolled through my followers and found 4 more missing. People I'd grabbed drinks with. People who'd been at our apartment for dinner parties. I opened my messages. 3 people I'd texted in the last week hadn't responded. 1 had left me on read for 5 days. I thought about posting something. A single story that said, there are 2 sides to every story, or sometimes the narrative isn't the truth. I typed it out twice and deleted it both times. Anything I said would get screenshot. Anything I said would become evidence. She'd do an episode called When They Break Their Silence, and describe my post as proof that I couldn't let her move on. Her audience would flood my comments. People at work would see it.
My mom would see it.
I set my phone down and stared at the ceiling.
She was on 2 podcasts now.
Her follower count had doubled. She had a Patreon with 300 supporters, paying $5 a month to hear bonus content. She was turning our breakup into a career, and I was watching from the sidelines as my reputation crumbled in rooms I'd never even entered. My silence looked like guilt. Her story kept growing, and every person who stopped talking to me was another data point, proving she'd been right all along. I spent the next 3 days going through my phone like I was building a case I'd never file. Old texts from the first year we dated. Voice memos she'd sent when she was stuck in traffic or working late at the studio. Photos with timestamps that contradicted her timeline. I wasn't looking for ammunition. I was looking for proof that I hadn't imagined the relationship we'd actually had. I found the voicemail on a Tuesday night. It was dated 14 months ago, 2 weeks after a fight we'd had about her telling people at a gallery opening that I didn't support her work. I'd confronted her about it the next morning, and she'd gotten defensive, then apologetic, then defensive again. The voicemail came that afternoon. Hey, it's me, her voice said, a little breathy, a little contrite. I just wanted to say I'm sorry about last night.
You were right.
I did exaggerate when I was talking to Jessica and them. I made it sound like you were dismissive of my art when really you've been nothing but supportive. I think I just wanted them to see me as the struggling artist with the unsupportive partner because it felt more interesting than the truth, which is that you're actually kind of great and I was having a bad day. Anyway, I know you hate it when I do that and I'm working on it. Thank you for being patient with me. I know my need for attention can be a lot sometimes.
Love you. I played it 3 times.
She'd thanked me for being patient with her need for attention. She'd admitted to exaggerating to make herself more interesting. She'd said I was supportive. That version of me didn't exist anywhere in her podcast. I saved the file to 3 different places and sent it to my personal email. Then I sat there staring at my phone, trying to figure out what to do with it. If I posted it publicly, she'd claim I was weaponizing a private moment. If I sent it to her directly, she'd say I was harassing her. If I did nothing, it would sit on my phone like evidence at a trial that would never happen.
I called Liam.
I need you to listen to something, I said, and played him the voicemail over the phone. He was quiet for a long time after it finished. Noah, he finally said, his voice hushed, that's the smoking gun. What do I do with it?
You fight back. You post it.
You let people hear who she actually was. And then she does an episode about me releasing private recordings without her consent. She spins it as revenge.
I look worse.
So, you just keep letting her lie? Liam exhaled sharply. My friend Rachel works in podcast production. She's helped people launch shows, Build audiences, that whole thing. You want me to ask her what she thinks.
About what?
About how you'd fight this if you were actually going to fight it. I met Rachel 2 days later at a coffee shop near her studio. She was in her mid-30s, headphones around her neck, nursing something that looked like it had 4 shots of espresso in it. Liam sent me the voicemail, she said, her gaze steady. And I listened to 5 episodes of her podcast.
And she's good.
Her pacing is tight, her storytelling is clean, and she knows how to make herself sound vulnerable without sounding weak. But here's the thing, the format she's using only works if no one challenges it. The second someone presents a counter-narrative with actual evidence, the whole thing starts to crack.
I can't sue her, I said, defeated.
My lawyer said it's not worth it.
I'm not talking about suing her, Rachel countered, a glint in her eye.
I'm talking about making your own podcast.
I stared at her. What? 1 episode. That's it.
You call it The Other Side, or the actual story, or whatever. You open with the voicemail. Then you calmly walk through the same events she described and show where her version doesn't line up with reality.
You don't attack her. You don't call her names.
You just present the facts and let people decide who's telling the truth. That sounds like exactly the kind of thing she'd use against me, I argued.
Only if you do it wrong, Rachel said, leaning forward.
If you go on a rant or try to destroy her, yeah, you look like the villain she's describing. But if you're calm, factual, and you lead with evidence, you look like someone who's defending themselves. You're not silencing her. You're adding context she left out. And if no one listens, then you're in the same place you are now. But if people do listen, and if that voicemail is as damaging as I think it is, her whole narrative starts to fall apart. She can't explain away her own words. I went home and opened a new document. I wrote for 4 hours, deleted half of it, and started over. I wasn't trying to bury her. I was trying to tell the truth in a way that didn't sound bitter or defensive or obsessed. I recorded the first draft in my bedroom closet, with my laptop mic and a blanket hung over the door to dampen the sound. It took 11 takes to get through the opening without my voice shaking. My name is irrelevant, I said, my voice finally steady. If you're listening to this, you probably already know who I am, or you think you do. My ex-girlfriend has spent the last 2 months telling a story about our relationship on a podcast called The Almost Fiancé. Some of what she's saying is true.
A lot of it isn't.
This is my side. I played the voicemail in full. Then I walked through the wedding story, the coffee joke, the work project, and the gallery opening. I cited dates, named witnesses who'd been there, and explained what she'd left out. I kept my tone even. I didn't say she was lying. I said her version was incomplete. The whole episode ran 28 minutes. I titled it The Other Side, and uploaded it to the same platform she used. No cover art, no description beyond a response to The Almost Fiancé.
I didn't promote it. I didn't post about it.
I sent the link to Liam, Chloe, and Sophia, and I asked them to share it if they felt comfortable. Then I closed my laptop and waited. The first notification came 6 hours later.
50 downloads. Then 200. By midnight, it was at 800.
Someone had posted the link in the comments section of Olivia's latest episode. Someone else had shared it in a Reddit thread about her podcast. A third person had clipped the voicemail and posted it on their Instagram story with the caption, "Wait, what?" I woke up to 4,000 downloads and 63 messages. Sophia texted, "I'm sharing this with everyone who asked me about the wedding. This needed to exist." Ethan wrote, "I knew something was off. Thank you for saying it." Jake from accounting sent, "People at work are listening. This is going to change things." My cousin messaged, "I sent this to Aunt Carol. She's calling Mom." The comments on my episode were split. Half of them said I was brave for speaking up. The other half said I was exactly the kind of person Olivia had described, using evidence and logic to manipulate people into doubting her. But the voicemail was there.
Her own voice.
Thanking me for being patient. Admitting she'd exaggerated. Calling me supportive. It didn't matter what people said about me after that. The recording existed and it contradicted everything. The first 48 hours felt like watching a slow avalanche. The download count climbed past 10,000 by the second morning, then 15, then 20. Every time I refreshed the page, the number jumped. People were sharing the link in group chats, tagging friends in comments, posting reaction threads on Reddit. Olivia's comments section started changing. Under her most recent episode, someone wrote, "Can you explain the voicemail from the other side? That's your voice, thanking him for being patient with your need for attention." Another comment said, I listened to both podcasts and the timelines don't match. You said he threw a tantrum at the wedding, but his episode has witnesses who say he had a migraine and left early with your brother's blessing. A third, why did you change his job title if this was about telling your truth? I watched the comments multiply for an hour before they disappeared. She turned off commenting entirely. Her Instagram story went up 20 minutes later. I will not be engaging with people who weaponize private conversations to discredit survivors. The text read over a black background. If you're here to interrogate my trauma, you're part of the problem. She posted a second slide. Some of you have sent me the response podcast. I'm aware of it. I'm choosing not to give it oxygen. This is exactly the behavior I described, retaliation disguised as truth-telling. I stared at the screen. She was doing exactly what I'd expected, framing my episode as an attack. But this time, her audience wasn't entirely with her. The replies to her story were split. Half of them said, stay strong. We believe you. The other half said, but what about the voicemail? And why won't you address the timeline issues?
My phone buzzed. A text from Sophia.
I just told 15 people about the wedding. Sent them your episode. They're all listening. Ethan messaged next. Olivia just blocked me. I commented asking about the voicemail and she deleted it and blocked me within 2 minutes.
Chloe called. People are picking sides.
It's getting messy. Which side are people picking? It's like 60/40, she said. 60% are questioning her now. 40 are calling you manipulative for recording her without consent, even though that's not what happened. But the 60% matters. That's a lot of people who didn't believe her story once they heard yours. Jake stopped by my desk the next morning. He knocked on the cubicle frame and waited for me to take my headphones off. I wanted you to know, people are talking, he said, in a good way. Most of the office has listened to your episode by now. Ava told me she feels bad for assuming the worst. Harper heard about the work project thing and she's furious. She said if anyone asks her, she's telling them you were nothing but collaborative. Thanks, I said, a genuine smile finally breaking through.
I mean it, Jake said.
A bunch of us were talking yesterday, and we all agreed the podcast thing was messed up. You didn't deserve that. Aunt Carol called that afternoon. I sent your episode to Brenda. She said she listened to the whole thing and then called me back. She said she feels awful for sharing Olivia's podcast without thinking about your side. She's telling everyone in her book club to listen to yours. I appreciate that, I said, my voice thick with emotion. Your mom listened too. She wanted me to tell you she's proud of you.
She couldn't tell me herself.
She feels bad for not believing you right away.
Give her a few days. She'll call.
3 days after I posted the other side, my download count passed 32,000. Olivia's most popular episode had 28,000. I'd overtaken her entire season with a single 28-minute response. Her Patreon dropped from 300 supporters to 212. Her Instagram following dipped by 600 people. She stopped posting for 4 days, then came back with a carousel of quotes about resilience and boundaries. On the 5th day, she released a new episode, episode 18. The title was Why I'm Stepping Back. I didn't want to listen. I listened anyway. I'm recording this because I owe it to the people who've supported me to explain why I'm taking a break, she said, her voice sounding tired, defeated. Over the last week, I've been the target of a coordinated harassment campaign. My ex-partner released a podcast designed to discredit me, and his supporters have flooded my pages, my inbox, and my comment sections with accusations and demands that I defend myself against his version of events.
She paused.
I heard her take a breath. I want to be really clear about something. Releasing a private voicemail without someone's consent is not truth-telling. It's a violation. And the fact that so many people are celebrating it as some kind of smoking gun shows how little we understand about power dynamics in abusive relationships. He's using the tools of logic and evidence to make me look like a liar. And that's exactly what abusers do. They take your words, strip them of context, and use them against you. The episode ran 14 minutes. She spent the last 6 talking about the importance of believing survivors and the danger of letting abusers rewrite history. She ended by saying she needed to step away from the podcast to protect her mental health. I'll be back when it's safe, she said. But for now, I need space to heal. The comments on that episode were the most divided yet. Her loyalists flooded in with support, calling her brave and saying they'd wait as long as it took for her to come back. But a larger group pushed back, asking why she wouldn't address the voicemail directly, why her timeline didn't match the one I'd laid out, why she'd change my job title if she was telling the truth. One comment had 200 likes. I believed her until I heard his episode. Now I don't know what to believe. That voicemail is damning. Another said, she's not stepping back to heal. She's stepping back because her story fell apart. Isabel reached out a week later. A short text that said, "Can we talk?"
I called her.
"I'm sorry," she said, her voice raw. "I should have asked more questions. I should have pushed back when she told me you were threatening her. I let her frame the whole thing and I didn't think to ask for your side." "It's fine," I said, truly meaning it.
It's not fine.
I chose her story because it was easier to believe than the idea that she'd make it all up. And I know other people did the same thing. We wanted to support her, and we didn't stop to think about what that cost you. Are you still friends with her?
No, Isabel said. I can't be.
Not after hearing that voicemail.
She lied to me.
She lied to all of us. 2 other people apologized over the next few days. One sent a long message about how they'd gotten swept up in the narrative and felt terrible for not reaching out sooner. The other just said, "I'm sorry. I should have known better."
But plenty of people stayed quiet. People who'd unfollowed me. People who'd avoided me at events.
People who'd chosen her platform over the truth because it was safer or more convenient or because they didn't want to risk losing access to her circle.
I didn't chase them.
I didn't ask for apologies. I just let them sit with their silence. My mom called 2 weeks after I posted my episode. "I listened 3 times," she said, her voice soft but firm. "I should have believed you the first time you told me. I'm sorry." "It's okay," I said, a knot in my chest finally loosening.
"It's not okay. You're my son.
I should have trusted you." "You didn't know what to believe. Neither did anyone else."
"I knew you," she said.
That should have been enough. Olivia never came back to the podcast.
Her Patreon dissolved.
Her follower count kept dropping. A few months later, someone told me she'd moved to a different city and was working on a new project, something about visual art and healing.
But I didn't look it up.
I kept the other side online.
I didn't promote it.
I didn't add to it. I just left it there. A single 28-minute episode with a voicemail at the beginning and a timeline that contradicted hers at every turn.
People still found it.
Every few weeks, someone new would send me a message, saying they'd listened to both podcasts, and mine made more sense. Someone would leave a comment thanking me for speaking up. Someone would share the link in a thread about false accusations or public reputation or the cost of staying silent. I thought about taking it down once. It felt strange to have this permanent record of the worst breakup of my life sitting on the internet where anyone could find it. But then I realized that was the point. Anyone who searched my name would find both versions of the story. They'd hear her narrative and mine. They'd listen to the voicemail and decide for themselves what the truth looked like. I didn't need everyone to believe me. I just needed the option to exist. She tried to build a story where I was the villain and she was the survivor. And for a while, it worked. But the second someone added context, the whole thing collapsed. I never spoke to her again. I didn't need to. The episode said everything I needed to say, and the response told me I wasn't the only one who'd needed to hear it. I'd spent 2 months watching my reputation disintegrate in rooms I couldn't enter. And then I'd spent one night recording the truth in my bedroom closet, and that was enough.
I didn't win. I didn't lose.
I just stopped being the character she needed me to be. What would you have done if your entire story was stolen and rewritten for an audience of thousands? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories like this.